Hello, and welcome to the EL Library Read Aloud of Nightbooks by J.A. White, read with permission from HarperCollins Publishers. So, yesterday we read Chapter 15, Dangerous Lies, and basically, to recap, there wasn't a lot going on, but there was, some stuff about some lying going on. Basically, the chapter was about Alex telling a story, writing a story, and then telling it to Natasha. And in that story, he says that he's went to Yasmin to get all kinds of help with magical oils to tell the story about the Neverworm. And what he does is he has figured out that through this story and through telling this lie, he's going to get Natasha all worked up, and that she's going to get worked up enough by trying to write what Alex has said in his story, that she's going to tell him what part of the magic potion is they need to be able to escape. So that's what she's trying to do, is the Alex and Yasmin are in on this plan, and it's just one lie after another. And finally, because remember in the story Neverworm, Alex uses the herb bindweed, which is the plant that makes the foul smell go away. And Natasha is like, at the end of the story, she's like, no way, that bindweed does not do that. And he gets really uppity, and he says, yeah, I did my research, and Yasmin helped and all of that. And Natasha gets so furious that in the end she says, bindweed can't do that, it's cinnaroot. Haha. And cinnaroot is actually the exact thing that Alex and Yasmin were looking for. That's the solution to their problem. So at the very end of the chapter, that's what she says. She says, yes, cinnaroot can do that. And then they go, oh yeah, of course, you're right. I had gotten my stuff wrong. That's what Yasmin says. And then at the end, the last sentence, Alex says, does cinnaroot start with an S or a C? I just want to make sure I get it right. So they totally tricked her by doing this. So let's continue with Chapter 16 today. And Chapter 16 is called A Pair of Red Eyes. After a quick breakfast, the two children donned their goggles and entered the nursery. It was the first time that Alex had been back since the incident with the danglers, and he was amazed at all the work Yasmin had done. Shattered black lights had been replaced, overturned plants restored to their rightful position. Luminous leaves and glowing stems created a brightly lit path through the darkness. Unlike the last time he had been here, the nursery was quiet and peaceful. Why does that night seem so long ago? Alex wondered. They moved quickly, Yasmin stopping every so often to gather an ingredient she needed. At one point, she handed Alex a pair of scissors to hold. She didn't ask him to hold them, nor did she need to. Inspired by this subtle gesture of friendship, Alex decided to risk a question that had been on his mind. So, where do you live? Alex asked. In the real world. Why do you want to know? Yasmin asked. The old caution had crept into her voice. Sorry, Alex said, a little hurt. I know you don't like to talk about your old life. I just thought that maybe things had changed. She touched his hand in the darkness. It's not that I don't want to tell you, Alex, Yasmin said. It's just, it hurts too much to talk about it. I miss my family. A lot. But they're like a wound that hasn't healed. If I don't think about it, the pain is bearable. But the moment I talk about home or say their names, I remember how bad it hurts. It has nothing to do with you. I get that, Alex said, relieved. I just wanted to see how close we lived to each other. He paused, then added softly, in case we ever want to hang out or something. After. Oh, Yasmin said. You really think we're going to get out of here? Unicorn Girl did it, Alex said. Why not us? Yasmin considered this for a long time. 33rd Street, she finally said, looking over her shoulder. Her face was tinted mauve from a nearby fern, just off Parsons. Alex smiled. It was too far for him to walk, but there was a bus stop right on the corner. "That'll work," he said. They took a sharp left down a narrow hallway that he hadn't noticed before. After a short walk, they came to a heavy curtain, identical to the one near the entrance to the nursery. Yasmin held it open for him. As he entered the next room, Alex felt Lenore brush past his legs. Until that moment, he had had no idea that she had even followed them, but he was glad. She should be here for this, he thought. She's one of us. "You can take your goggles off now," Yasmin said, letting the curtain close behind them. She removed her own goggles and reached for something behind Alex. Click. Work lights buzzed to life. They were regular lights, not black lights, and Alex squinted against the unexpected brightness. After his eyes had a chance to readjust, he saw that he was in a simple room with a concrete floor and 4 identical silver machines. "Oil distillers," Yasmin said. "You put the magic herbs inside, steam sucks out all the good stuff and turns it into a few drops of essential oil. Pretty cool, right?" Each distiller was split into 2 vats with dials and tubes between them. The bottom one was fat and wide and looked like it could hold a lot of liquid. Above it was a tall cylinder on a metal stand that reminded Alex of a pipe from an old church organ. 3 of the distillers bubbled and chugged and occasionally released puffs of copper-hued smoke into the air. Alex stepped closer to one of them and held his hand a few inches shy of its surface. Waves of heat tingled his skin. "Don't touch it," Yasmin exclaimed. "You'll get a nasty burn." Alex pulled his hand back. "What's this one making right now?" he asked. Yasmin consulted a notebook hanging off a small stepladder. "Popularity oil." She pointed to the other 2 machines in turn. "Hair-growing oil, acne oil." "To give someone acne or take it away?" "Beats me," Yasmin said. "I just follow the recipe." She crossed the room to a wooden workbench. Long trays held beakers of all shapes and sizes. There were also several knives crusted with old plant matter. "How long will it take?" Alex asked, bending down to feed Lenore a handful of Fruit Loops. She gulped them up quickly and then nudged his pocket with her head, wanting more. Alex obliged. "We can't do anything yet," Yasmin said, hanging the herbs from hooks above the workbench. "We have to let these dry overnight." She switched on a small heating unit beneath the herbs. Warm air blew upward. "In the morning, I can set them up in the distiller. Figure 6 hours in the machine. We should be ready to go by tomorrow night." "Assuming I can think of a story," Alex said. "Only 2 left. After tonight, I'm all out." "Why bother writing anything new?" Yasmin asked, washing her hands in a slop sink. "Natasha's going to drink the sleeping oil during dinner. She'll be asleep before She'll be asleep before you have to read anything." "Well, we don't know if it's going to work right away," Alex said. "The original recipe was for a potion. We're changing it into an oil. What if it takes a little while to kick in? We want everything to seem as normal as possible while we wait." "A single drop of oil is super concentrated," Yasmin said, bending down to check a temperature gauge outside one of the distillers. "My guess is it will work even faster than a potion." She thought about this for a moment. "Huh," she said. "I hope it's not too strong. We don't want to kill her." "Yeah," Alex said. "I want to get out of here, but I don't want to murder anyone." "Oh, no," Yasmin said, shaking her head. "I would feel bad, too. Well, sort of. But that's not the reason we don't want to kill her. Think about it. What happens if you're wrong about her bedroom door? What if it doesn't lead outside?" "It does," Alex said. "I'm positive." "Then, what if that particular bone key has some sort of magical protection?" Yasmin said, "and Natasha is the only one who can use it." "Oh," Alex said. He hadn't thought of that possibility. "I see what you mean now. If something happens to Natasha, We might be trapped in the apartment forever. Eventually, we'd just starve to death. He shuddered as his overactive imagination sent him horrifying images of starvation. Lenore, sensing a sudden need for comfort, brushed against his legs. That was always my argument with Eli, whenever he said we should try to kill her, Yasmin said. Not that he listened in the end. I do have an idea, though. What if we put this off a few days and test the oil first? Make sure we know what it does. Didn't you just say it could kill Natasha? Alex asked. Not tested on us, Yasmin said. She eyed Lenore. But there might be another living creature that could help us out. I mean, the oil probably works fine, so it'll just end up being a nice nap. Lenore looked from Yasmin to Alex with an expression of disbelief. Is she seriously suggesting this? Alex picked up the cat and held her close. Not going to happen, he said. Fine, said Yasmin. Then we'll just have to go into this blind. But, yeah, you should probably have a story ready just in case. We don't really know what to expect. Weren't you working on a ghost one? That sounded pretty good. Still stuck, Alex said. Want to kick around some ideas? Alex hesitated, but only for a moment. Time was running out, and he needed all the help he could get. That would be great, he said. Let's see, Yasmin said. My language arts teacher said you're supposed to write what you know, so ever had any scary experiences? Well, this one time I was captured by a witch. Besides that. Okay, Alex said, taking a deep breath. There is one thing. I've never really told anyone about it, though. Yasmin took a seat on the floor and motioned for Alex to do the same. All we need is a campfire, she said. Come on, tell me. So, I was waiting for the 7 train with my parents, not on one of the outdoor platforms, but down in the Main Street station. There was a pretty bad snowstorm that day, so there weren't a lot of people out and about. The platform was empty. My parents were having some kind of serious talk with John, so I wandered away, mostly out of boredom. I must have been 4 or 5 at the time. I crept down to the end of the platform just to see if the subway was coming, and deep in the tunnel, I saw these 2 red lights in the distance. At first, I figured it was just a pair of signals or something. Alex swallowed slowly, but then they blinked. Yasmin's eyes widened. What happened next? She asked, transfixed. The eyes moved, Alex said. They got closer to the edge of the tunnel, to the border between the darkness and the light. I knew I should go back to my parents, but those red eyes hypnotized me. Alex rose to his feet, acting out his movements in the story. I got closer to the darkness. Closer. It was like I wasn't even controlling my own feet anymore. He knelt down, his face close to Yasmin's now. And then, the thing with the red eyes, it whispered something, he said. Yasmin leaned forward. What? She asked. Yasmin! She screamed, falling backward. Got ya, Alex said, laughing hard. I got you so good. You're the worst, she exclaimed, smacking him hard on the arm. For a second, Alex was afraid she was actually mad, but then he saw the huge smile on her face. Seriously, we are no longer friends. You have no choice, Alex said. I'm the only one here. Lenore, Yasmin said, turning toward the cat, would you like to be my friend? My only friend? Lenore gave them both a strange look, as though she would never understand humans, and disappeared. You just got rejected by a cat, Alex said. It kinda hurts, Yasmin said. You know, even though you're a total jerk, and I'm going to hate you forever, you did give me an idea. That story was scary because it was so normal. Everyone knows what a subway station is like at night. I could picture it in my head. So Maybe you should write about something in your life. It doesn't even need to be anything scary at first. You can just dress it up that way. Take something real and make it creepy, Alex said, nodding his head. A lot of famous horror authors do that. Exactly, Yasmin said. Like, imagine you were going to write a story about someone you know. Who would you write about? My brother, Alex said, without hesitation. Really? Yasmin asked in surprise. From what you said, I didn't think you guys were close. We're not, said Alex. That's the point. Every story needs conflict, and every moment with John, conflict. Well, maybe start with him then. Brothers who don't get along, Alex said, rolling it over in his head, and then add some other ideas. See what works best together. Like cooking, Yasmin replied, smiling. Maybe we're not so different after all, except you're still a jerk, and I'm really nice. That's why Lenore likes me better. Lenore does not like you better. Enough yapping, she said, shoving him playfully toward the exit. You need to get to work. By the end of the day, Alex had started 4 different stories about brothers who couldn't get along. None of them were right. He began to wonder if the whole thing was a dead end. What am I going to do? As if they didn't have enough problems, Natasha seemed to be on to them. She barely said a word all evening, except to ask Alex for his nightbook. She examined it with surprising thoroughness, even pausing to read a page here and there, and then handed it back to him with a knowing look, as though a suspicion had been confirmed. As Alex read his story about a girl who gets a strange pet for her birthday, he felt her eyes watching him the entire time. She knows. But later, as he lay in bed, too worried to sleep, Alex changed his mind. If Natasha knew what we were up to, why didn't she do something about it right then and there? I'm just seeing shapes in the shadows, that's all. That made him feel a little better, but it didn't help him with his other problem, the story. What if I can't think of anything? He thought, heart racing. Will Natasha have time to turn me into one of her porcelain figurines before the sleeping oil kicks in? He stared at the mattress above him, cycling through ideas like channels on a TV. Eyeglasses that let you see invisible monsters. A gravestone that tells you when you die. A comic book shop that... And then it hit him. There you are, he exclaimed. Alex burst into laughter. He couldn't help it. The perfect idea had been in front of him the entire time. There was no sense trying to go back to sleep. His mind was awake and eager to work. Alex practically skipped to the library and hopped into his chair. The words came easily, as he knew they would. By late afternoon, he had finished his story. And that's the end of chapter 16 today. We will be right back here with chapter 17 tomorrow afternoon at 3 o'clock, right here on the Edward Little Library YouTube channel. And the link to that is sent out every day on both Instagram and Facebook. So thank you for joining us today. Have a wonderful afternoon, and I look forward to reading again tomorrow.